I'm going to be talking about some of the best hidden Thorpe Park secrets I could possibly find. There's something that is very, very hard to spot unless you're, actively looking for it. And of course I've saved the best for last, and this is something I literally had zero clue about. What's up guys, I hope you're all well. Welcome back to yet another video on the channel, and today I got something a little bit different for you guys. As some of you probably, let's be honest, definitely will know, Thorpe Park recently has opened again, of course after close season that's been happening over the last few months, thank God. And with that kind of happening, I kind of wanted to delve into something a little bit interesting that I've kind of been stewing on for a few months, and that thing that I've been stewing on is of course Easter eggs, something that everyone can enjoy at Thorpe Park, and something that I absolutely love having a look at while I'm walking around the park, or if I'm just kind of waiting in the queue line. There's always little tidbits you can find, and it's one of my favourite things to experience when at a theme park. So yeah, in today's video I'm going to be talking about some of the best hidden Thorpe Park secrets I could possibly find. Now obviously with the nature of this video there is probably going to be a lot of people out there, especially die-hard Thorpe Park fans, that do know a lot of these Easter eggs. However, I did try and find some really niche ones, and there's actually a few on this list, particularly towards the end, that I completely didn't even know about, which is really interesting. And I do kind of want to structure this video in a bit of an interesting way. We're going to kind of go down the levels together. We're going to kind of start out with some of the more noticeable Thorpe Park Easter eggs, something that maybe keen-eyed people walking around the park may have already noticed, and then as we go down the list we're going to kind of get a little bit more niche and a little bit more hidden, and yeah, hopefully the last one I'm hoping is something that's a little bit more ambiguous that not a lot of people know about. Fingers crossed. So with that being said, let's move on into number 5 on the list, and this is actually something that I do genuinely think a lot of people, if you're keen-eyed, will probably spot, and that is of course the XTrains in The Walking Dead The Ride. Now this is something that was to be expected on this list, because there are absolutely tons of Easter eggs within the Walking Dead building that specifically of course reference back to X. Now for those of you out there that don't know what X is, or anything to do with what happened kind of pre The Walking Dead The Ride with this building, basically it used to be a ride called X, and it was one of the greatest rides I think at Thorpe Park, personally, in my opinion. It kind of went through a few changes back in the day. It started off as X No Way Out, which was kind of themed to more of like a military operation and hacking and stuff, that kind of thing. And then slowly it kind of transitioned into what we knew as X, which was kind of more of a nightclub theme. Think of The Walking Dead The Ride, but you were basically kind of going around with strobe lights and dubstep, I think it was. God, that makes me sound like a boomer. But yeah, so that was kind of the nature that X kind of was before transitioning into The Walking Dead The Ride, and you can still see a lot of the remnants of that within the X building, which obviously is now the ride kind of area for The Walking Dead The Ride. There's a lot of different Easter eggs, some a bit more than others, but the kind of main Easter egg I wanted to discuss in this video is of course the trains. The trains from X are still basically there. They're what you ride on within The Walking Dead The Ride, and of course this actually does fit in quite nicely with The Walking Dead The Ride's theming, because it's kind of meant to be a rundown area that's been turned into a safe zone, so it does kind of fit in with the lore of The Walking Dead The Ride. And again, it's not anything that's going to blow people's minds, but I thought it was an interesting one to mention on the list, and I kind of felt like I couldn't do this list without mentioning it, because I love X. It's one of my favourite rides and will always hold a special place in my heart. So yeah, that is number 5 on the list. Let's move on to number 4. Now this is actually one of my favourite Easter eggs at Thorpe Park, and will forever hold a very special place in my heart for a very specific reason, and this is of course the claw machines. Now if you guys don't really know what these are, these were essentially claw machines that popped up around Thorpe Park. I believe it was in 2022 or 2023, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. It's one of those 2 years, and essentially this was just kind of seen as something cool that Thorpe Park did, because these, I was about to say vending machine there, it's not vending machine, these claw machines essentially had loads of Easter eggs to loads of the past Thorpe Park attractions on it, and Jack Silkstone even got a cheeky little Easter egg in there as well, which was really cool. But the main kind of thing that stuck out at the time of these being placed within the park itself was the fact that there was a bit of an odd name on these vending machines, not vending machine, I've said it again, claw machines, and that is of course Exodus. This was pretty much, other than the poster in trailers, the earliest recorded usage of the word Exodus by Thorpe Park themselves. And obviously at this stage we didn't know what Exodus meant or was, but a lot of people did actually catch on to this, including myself, and kind of thought, hang on a minute, there's something a little bit dodgy going on here. So it was pretty sus, but obviously a couple of months later we got the official announcement of what Project Exodus was. But still, it'll always hold a place in my heart as one of my favourite Easter eggs because it was such an exciting time at Thorpe Park. So yeah, it'll always be special to me, and it wasn't really something I could leave off of this list. Okay then, so let's move on to number 3, and now this time we're kind of moving into a little bit niche territory now. This is something that probably die-hard fans of Thorpe Park will know about, but some casual fans out there might not actually know this, and that is to do with Space Station Zero. Now, for those of you that don't know, Space Station Zero is essentially an indoor family coaster that was featured within Thorpe Park. Now, in 1989, Thorpe Park got a bit tired of it, so they kind of stripped it of everything that made it Space Station Zero and turned it into a ride called the Flying Fish the following year, which is obviously something a lot of people know about now. And yes, Space Station Zero is technically on park as Flying Fish, but the story doesn't end there. Essentially, what kind of happened and the interesting history behind the Flying Fish is that it of course transitioned from Space Station Zero to the Flying Fish, and then around about 2004, 2005, Thorpe Park actually had to move it out of the way because it was actually situated where Stealth is now. And obviously to make Stealth they had to kind of shove it out of the way, so they removed it, and then a few years later, I believe in 2007 or 2008, it made its triumphant return back to the park and kind of had a bit of a reinvigorated surfer theme to it. And that is kind of the gist of this Easter egg. It is basically the fact that Space Station Zero in its very bare bone forms is still at Thorpe Park at the moment, which is a really cool thing. It's a good bit of Thorpe Park history, and it's a really fun fact I think to know. It's one of my favourite Thorpe Park facts, so yeah, again, it's a little bit niche, but you know, still kind of knowable if you know your ins and outs of the Thorpe Park lore. Okay, so moving on to number 2 now, we're getting a little bit deeper in here. This is something that is, you know, very hard to see, I think. I mean, I could be really stupid, but I actually didn't know about this one before making this video, and that is the Amity Waterline. Stay with me. This may sound a bit weird now, but it will all make sense once I explain what that actually means. Now, obviously, Amity is an absolute staple of Thorpe Park. It is basically kind of the central hub, you know, for the park itself, and it's kind of been at Thorpe Park for as long as I can remember, at least, ever since I was younger, so it's a very kind of nostalgic place. But there's actually a hidden detail here that very much slips under the radar unless you're really paying attention, which 9 times out of 10 I'm not. Now, obviously, the kind of theme of Amity, specifically within Thorpe Park, is that there's been a huge tidal wave that's caused chaos and destruction through central Amity. Obviously, you have the Speedway that's off over by Stealth. That's kind of a little kind of subsection spin-off of the main Amity area, of course now separated by Big Easy Boulevard. But the main kind of Amity area is very much themed to this, you know, tidal wave. Now, this can obviously be seen throughout the area, you know, with the massive shark that flung itself into the Amity Hotel for some odd reason. That is obviously a cause of the tidal wave, and on top of this also you have the mega store being a little bit wonky and a little bit kind of broken and whatnot. That was really weird. That also was a cause of the tidal wave itself, but that's not what the Easter egg is. This is something that I hadn't actually realised until researching this video and looking at the pictures. There's actually a visible waterline across the Amity area that kind of shows that you're standing at where the sea level is. Now, this is noticeable in a few areas, the main kind of one being the building that KFC situates itself within. You can actually see the bottom half of the building looks like it's been chopped off. So the little mini door that's on the right hand side is kind of like half of a door to show that the water level has risen up to that point of the building, which I thought was a really cool, you know, detail. But on top of this, you've also got kind of tram lines that seem to kind of go down under the water. So it's a really interesting addition that I never really knew about Thorpe Park. You know, it's again really nice attention to detail, and I love attention to detail in theme parks. So it's one of the kind of cooler things now that I visit Thorpe Park I'm going to be keeping an eye out for. Again, this is a really small detail, but I thought it was a really fun one to mention, and it's something that is very, very hard to spot unless you're, you know, actively looking for it. So I thought it, you know, earned its place within the second spot on this list. Okay then, so we're now at number 1, and of course I've saved the best for last, and this is something I literally had zero clue about, and is one of the coolest Easter eggs, I think. Now, of course, one of the big roller coasters at Thorpe Park is, of course, Soar the Ride. I rode it last Friday and almost gave myself a concussion, but it is one of the more famous rides to feature itself within Thorpe Park, and it actually has a really big Easter egg within the first opening section of the coaster. Now, obviously, anyone who's ridden Soar knows that as you go out the station, you kind of go through an indoor section, leading to obviously getting sprayed with water by a body on the floor. However, that is actually not the extent of this Easter egg. There is more to it than just that. Now, obviously, over the last few years, Thorpe Park have offered behind-the-scenes tours for a lot of their attractions, including Saw the Ride, The Walking Dead the Ride, and also the Ghost Train. And these kind of reveal some of the smaller secrets and obviously let the people who are attending the kind of VIP behind-the-scenes to actually walk around some of the more enclosed and off-limits areas of the ride, which is really cool. This actually uncovered the Easter egg I'm about to tell you, and that is the fact that that body on the floor not only is meant to represent John Kramer from the original Saw, who of course is lying on the bathroom floor. You know, that's kind of the big twist at the end of the film, is that he rips all the stuff off. He's actually alive, and then game over, yada yada yada, and then spawns off one of the biggest franchises known to man. Now, this isn't exactly where this ends. It actually extends further than just the kind of body double of John Kramer on the floor, you know, underneath the track. It actually is a full-scale replica of the Saw bathroom from the original Saw film, complete with toilets and everything, which I think is one of the coolest things Thorpe Park has ever done. And I completely missed this. Obviously, when you're on the roller coaster, this is pretty hard, you know, to notice, because you're getting flung upside down while getting sprayed with water, so you're pretty much going through the ringer at this point of the ride, and you know, it's a bit disorientating, so you never really get to properly look at what is actually going on around you. Now, a little bit of an honourable mention I wanted to kind of touch upon. There is actually some real props from the Saw films that are featured throughout the ride area. One of these being one of the Saw traps that is used within the Saw films, is actually located within the queue line, which I think is really cool. And I do believe at one point one of the Billy puppets, I don't actually know if it's the one upstairs or the one downstairs, but one of the two was actually used within the Saw films, which again is really cool, you know, detail. Obviously these are things that, you know, are kind of common knowledge, but I still think it's really interesting and shows that there was a lot of love and effort put into Saw. As much as I don't like the actual roller coaster itself, I do absolutely adore the theming of Saw. I think it's one of the best on park, and you can tell that they absolutely went balls to the walls with the IP, and they didn't take a single thing for granted. So truth be told, I've got to give him a bit of brownie points for that one, I can't lie. Okay then, so that does bring us to the end of the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This is obviously something that, you know, is, you know, interactive to a certain extent, I suppose, if you want to look at it that way. When you next go to Thorpe Park, have a look out for some of these Easter eggs and let me know down in the comments below if you spotted any of them. And in addition to that, if there's any I've missed, like really big Easter eggs that you wanted to see in the video, let me know down in the comments below. I could maybe consider doing a sequel to this video. But yeah, in addition to all that, definitely let me know, are there any here that you didn't know about? I know, like I said, there was a few in here that when researching I literally had no clue even existed. So let me know, am I just a plastic Thorpe Park fan, or are there actually some really deep cuts on here? I'd love to know in the comments down below. So I'm going to stop rambling now, because I do this every single time. I make the intro go, the outro, sorry, go on for way longer than it needs to. I'm going to let you get on with the rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.